بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين. I start by the name of Allah. I thank Him and praise Him for the countless blessings that He granted us without being obligated to do so. I ask Allah Ta'ala humbly to raise the rank of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, his kind family, and his great companions. Thereafter, dear brothers and sisters, inshaAllah, in our lesson today, we are going to continue in explaining the second category of apostasy. So the author said, may Allah Ta'ala have mercy upon him. The second category of apostasy is the actions, such as prostrating to an idol. This means that they are prostrating to an object that is worshipped instead of Allah Ta'ala, whether it was made of stone, wood, or otherwise, or to prostrate to the sun or the moon, on any account. This is blasphemy and apostasy, meaning that this is opposite to the Islamic belief, and it is something that invalidates one's status as a Muslim, whether or not one intended to worship them. As well, prostrating to a human out of worship, like the prostration of some ignorant people to the Sufi claimers out of worshipping them. These people are not Sufis, and they have nothing to do with true Sufism. Rather, Sufism is the purity of conduct within one's worship of Allah, the purity of their behavior. Rather, Sufism is first and foremost based on knowledge and action upon that knowledge. It is not simply about wearing a wool scarf while ignoring the religious rules and making it seem like you have renounced the pleasures of this life. Rather, a Sufi is as the scholars have said, is the one who wears wool over purity, the one who takes the path of the chosen prophet, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And he's the one who feeds their desires and their inclinations the taste of abandonment. They abandon their desires, and the worldly pleasures in respect to them are behind their back. These are the Sufis. They are not in any way like those claimers who think they are exempt from the rules of the religion. Based on a rank they've reached, they think they have reached. Even the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam never exempt himself from following the rules of the religion. And so whose example are these people following? And so, brothers and sisters, prostrating to a human out of worship is a blasphemous action. This is an action which is opposite to the belief in Islam, like the prostration of some ignorant people to those Sufi claimers out of worship. However, if this prostration is not out of worship, rather this was something that was out of a salutation. They prostrated to these Sufi claimers out of a salutation, for instance. Then this is not blasphemous, but it is sinful within the laws of our Master Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And moving on into the third category of apostasy, the author said, the third category of apostasy is the apostate sayings, which are too many to be included. Some examples are to say to a Muslim, "O blasphemer, O Jew, O Christian, O you without a religion," meaning the religion of the addressed person is blasphemy. Because when they call out to a Muslim saying, "O blasphemer," they are calling the belief of that Muslim blasphemy. They are saying that the belief of that Muslim is something opposite to the belief in Islam. It's something that contradicts this belief. Or that their religion is Judaism, meaning that they are calling the belief of that Muslim Judaism. The same thing goes for Christianity. If they were to call out to a Muslim saying, "Oh, you without a religion," by this, they are saying that the Islamic belief is not a religion. And so all of this is apostasy. And all of this is blasphemy. All of this contradicts the Islamic belief. However, if one says such words to a Muslim with the purpose of likening him to those non-Muslims in their behavior, meaning that the Muslim they called out to in one of those ways resembles the blasphemers in his mean acts, or that he treats the Muslims the way the blasphemers treat Muslims, then this is not blasphemy, but it is an enormous sin. This is not something that is allowed within the religion. Also from this category is to mock one of the names of Allah Ta'ala, or His promise of paradise, that is, and the enjoyment that occurs within paradise, or to mock His threat, the threat of Allah Ta'ala, which is hellfire, and the torture that happens within hellfire, while knowing that such matters, like the name of Allah, like His promise and His threat, all of these things are confirmed to Him. So, for instance, there is a statement that are said by some vile people. They say, tomorrow we are going to warm up by the fire of hell. Something like this contains a mockery. It mocks the severity of hellfire. And this is something because of which that belies the Quran. Also from this category is to say with the intent to belittle, with the intent to show an unimportance which goes in opposite to the Islamic belief. The command of Allah, or to say with the intent to belittle, which is to show an unimportance in a manner that goes opposite to the Islamic belief. To say, if Allah Ta'ala ordered me with such a matter, whatever that matter was, I would not do it. Or for someone to say, if the Qibla were changed to another direction, I would not pray towards it. Or for someone to say, if Allah gave me paradise, I would not enter it. All of this, if it were done with belittlement, okay, showing that unimportance to the commands of Allah Ta'ala, or stubbornness against the religion, in all of these cases, then this is something that is blasphemous. However, if they were not said out of belittlement, or out of stubbornness, or in belying the religion, then it is not blasphemous. Also from this category is if a person was sick, if a person happened to be sick, and someone ordered him to pray, and he said, if Allah punished me for leaving out the prayers despite my sickness, He would be unjust to me. This would remove him from Islam, because this statement, they attributed injustice to Allah within it. And also from this category is to say about an occurrence, any occurrence, this thing happened without the destining of Allah. Whether that thing was good or evil. Also to say if the prophets or the angels or all of the Muslims testified before me about something, I would not accept it from them. Meaning they would not believe them. Then this person has left Islam, because this statement belies the known religious texts. Also, for a person to say after someone has ordered them to perform a recommended action, a sunnah, like using the siwak, I will not do so. I will not do such and such, even if it is a recommended matter, even if it's sunnah, with the purpose of mockery, okay, with the intention of mocking the sunnah. However, if one did not intend to mock the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, then one does not exit Islam with such a statement. Also, to say about one's enemy, for example, if this person were a prophet, I would not believe in them. Then one is also no longer a Muslim. Why? Because with such a statement, they are mocking the office of prophethood. Not only are they trying to mock their enemy, but with this statement, this kind of a statement, they are mocking the office of prophethood. And this is something that is blasphemous. This is something that contradicts the belief in Islam. Also, to say when a scholar issues a religious judgment, a fatwa, what is this law? With the purpose of belittling the judgment of that Islamic law. Also, to say when a scholar issues a religious judgment or a fatwa, what is this law? With the purpose of belittling the judgment of the Islamic law. However, if the scholar gave a person a judgment which they see as false and against the religion, so the person that was given this fatwa, he sees it as being against the religion. It does not go in accordance with what he knows of the religion. And for that reason, he said to the scholar, what are these words that you claim are from the religion of Allah Ta'ala when they are not? This is what he means by his statement. And in such a case, this statement would not be opposite to the belief. It would not be blasphemous. Also, from this category is to say, may Allah Ta'ala damn every religious scholar. While they intend to include all of the scholars, they intend a comprehensive generalization, meaning they have generalized this damnation to include all of the scholars. In such a case, the speaker would no longer be a Muslim. However, if one did not intend to include all of the religious scholars, rather he meant specific scholars, because he believes that they are corrupt, and this statement was said within a context, okay? Within a context, within a case, a specific case or a situation, which indicates that the intended meaning was something else. It was not that generalized, comprehensive intention which includes all of the scholars. Such as if he was speaking about the corrupt scholars of his time. He was speaking with somebody about the scholars of his time who he sees as corrupt. And then he said this statement while intending. And then he said this statement while intending these specific scholars, because he believes that they are corrupt. Then one would not blaspheme. Such a statement, however, is not clear of sin. But if there was no context that shows his intention of specifying those corrupt scholars, then he is no longer a Muslim. Even if he says after that, I mean the scholars of my time. Also from this category is to say, I do not acknowledge Allah or the angels or the Prophet, meaning our Master Muhammad or any other Prophet. Or to say, I do not acknowledge the Islamic law, Sharia. For someone to say, I do not acknowledge the Islamic law, the Shara, that Allah Ta'ala brought down upon His Prophet. Or to say, I do not acknowledge Islam. All of these statements would take one out of Islam. Because it's as though he is saying, I have nothing to do with these things. I do not acknowledge them. And this is something that is contradictory to the belief in Islam. Also from this category is to say, after someone asked another person, why did you do this thing that is prohibited, haram? Don't you know the judgment? And to this he answered, I don't know this judgment, with the purpose of mocking the judgment that was revealed by Allah Ta'ala. He has this intention within his heart to mock this judgment. I don't know that judgment. This statement is opposite to the belief. This statement is blasphemous, and it invalidates one's status as a Muslim. Also, to mention an ayah with the intention of belittling its meaning, like to say, وَكَأْسًا دِهَاقًا, which refers to a cup full to the brim with the drinks of paradise, from chapter 78, verse 34. So if one were to say this verse after they had filled up a cup with any sort of a drink, having the intention of belittling or disbelieving in what Allah Ta'ala promised to the believers in paradise, of full cups with enjoyable drinks, then they are no longer Muslims, because they have belittled the promise of Allah. They have done something which is contradictory, directly opposite to the Islamic belief. Or for one to say verse 20 from chapter 78, فَكَانَتْ سَرَابًا, which refers to mountains that will vanish on the day of judgment as if they were a mirage. So if one were to say this verse after one has emptied out a drink from a container, to belittle it by likening the disappearance of this drink, the emptiness of the cup after that drink has been poured out, to the mountains that would vanish on the day of judgment, then they are no longer Muslims. As well to say verse 3 from chapter 83, وَإِذَا كَالُوهُمْ أَوْ وَزَنُوهُمْ يُخْسِرُونَ, which refers to some people cheating in measuring and weighing. So if one were to say this when they were weighing or measuring something in order to belittle this verse in the Quran, as though they meant that what Allah Ta'ala has said or what He has threatened has no value in his heart, then this person has left Islam. He has contradicted the belief in Islam. Also to say, verse 74, chapter 18, وَحَشَرْنَاهُمْ فَلَمْ نُغَادِرْ مِنْهُمْ أَحَدًا, which refers to the judgment day, when the people will be assembled without any of them left out. So if one were to say this verse when seeing a crowd of people, to belittle it, then they are no longer a Muslim. As well, if one uses the verses of the Quran in other than their proper context, without belittling them, one does not commit blasphemy. However, Sheikh Ahmed ibn Hajar al-Haytami said that this is not far from being unlawful, meaning it is not far from being haram, meaning that this is haram in the most credible saying of the scholars, because this type of statement contains a lack of proper etiquette with the Quran. And to cuss a prophet or an angel also opposes the Islamic belief, like cussing Gabriel, the angel Gabriel, or Azrael, the angel Azrael, the angel of death, or Munkar and Nakir, the two angels that will ask the questions in the grave, or any other angel of Allah, or to say words which mock the prayer, such as to say, I would be a pimp if I performed the prayer. Or for one to say, nothing good has happened to me since I started praying, because it contains a belittlement of the prayer. It contains the showing of an unimportance to the prayer, which goes in opposite to the belief in Islam. Or to say after someone, for example, ordered a person to pray, prayer is not proper for me. For somebody to say this after they were ordered to pray, with the purpose of mockery, as this statement also goes in opposition, it contradicts the Islamic belief. However, if a menstruating woman, a woman that was on her period, said this with the meaning that the prayer is not valid from her while she is in menstruation, then she does not blaspheme. And to say to a Muslim, I am your enemy and the enemy of your prophet, this results in a person leaving Islam, since it contains a belittlement of the prophet. Or to say to a descendant of the prophet, a person who is sharif, I am your enemy and the enemy of your grandfather. And who do they mean by his grandfather? They mean the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Also, this would result in a person leaving Islam. However, if he meant a closer grandfather who is not a prophet, then he does not blaspheme. Also from this category is to say anything similar to those aforementioned and abhorrent and ugly things. This would result in one leaving Islam. May Allah Ta'ala protect us from them. Now, there is a large number of scholars of jurisprudence, of law, from the four schools of thought, like the Hanafiya and the Malikiyya and the Shafi'iyya. Specifically, we're talking about the Hanafi faqih, the jurist, Badr al-Rashid, and the Maliki judge, Iyad. May Allah Ta'ala have mercy upon them both. They enumerated many things that pertain to these issues of belief, meaning they listed many different matters that pertain to the issues of apostate beliefs or apostate acts or apostate sayings, which would contradict the Islamic belief. So these two scholars and others listed many of these matters, many of these beliefs, and many of these actions, and many of these sayings after they started happening within their times, in order to warn the people from committing these types of acts, and these types of sayings, and these types of beliefs, and to teach them of that which one needs to know in order to avoid these things. Because whoever does not know the evil matters is more likely to fall into them. And so the rule upon which the scholars base their rulings in these cases, a general rule upon which the scholars base their judgments in these different cases, is to say, or is to know and to engrave in our hearts that any belief, action, or saying which belittles Allah, or His books, or His messengers, or His angels, His rights, the well-known practices of His religion, that is, the obvious matters of the religion, the obvious things which stand out within the religion, like the prayer and the adhan and the mosques, as well His rules, if one were to belittle the rules of Allah Ta'ala within the prayer and zakat, or His promise of paradise and the rewards, or His threat of hellfire and torture, this is blasphemy. Who would ever do such a thing has blasphemed. Hence, the human must use their utmost caution, with their utmost effort, to avoid this blasphemy at all times. That is, the person should make their greatest effort to avoid these things, and to be extremely careful about it, and to watch every single thing that they are saying, and to learn the beliefs in order that they can protect their hearts truly, and to think before they act on these different matters which could possibly lead them astray. And so whoever dies beyond the fold of Islam is a loser in this life and the hereafter. May Allah Ta'ala protect us. And with this we have concluded our lesson for today. Wa subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik.